Okay. I would like to call the Committee of the Whole meeting of May the 1st, May Day, 2023 to order. Good evening, everyone. My name is JD Pachariva, Councillor and Chair of the Planning and Economic Development Committee. I'd like to begin by reading a safety notice. In the event of an emergency, please evacuate council chambers to the nearest exit through the chamber doors and obey all instructions given. And if assistance is required, please see our deputy clerk. Devan, is that you this evening? Okay, so we'll be following the leader, Devan, out the door in case of an emergency. Once you've evacuated the building, please gather in the front parking lot outside of Town Hall. Also, please ensure your cell phones are on silent or turned off. And lastly, the Town of Lincoln Council meetings are posted on our YouTube channel. Members of council are in attendance this evening with regrets from Councillor Brunet, Councillor Michalak, and Mayor Easton, who is attending the joint Great Lakes Water Symposium in Ottawa. So we wish her all the best. And it's her birthday today. So even when she's being in Ottawa, she found the presence of mind to hit the front grass at the Parliament buildings and wash her face in the dewfall like she usually does. So we wish her a happy birthday. Hope she's found a little bit of time to have some fun this evening. And yes, we will miss her, but we have us in attendance. We have staff in attendance in person and remotely. Additionally, we have representatives from Urban in Mind attending this evening, as well as resident delegations. Are there any declarations of interest, committee members? I see none. Do members have any amendments to the order of tonight's agenda? I see none. Statutory public meetings, we have none. Consent agenda, we are now considering consent agenda inclusive of the Museum Advisory Committee minutes of February 16th, 2023. Would any member of council like to remove this item from the consent agenda to discuss? Okay. There being no further discussion, I have a motion moved by Councillor Murray that all items listed under the heading of consent agenda for Monday, May 1st, 2023 be adopted as recommended. The Museum Advisory Committee minutes of February 16th, 2023. I will now ask our deputy clerk to open the vote.
Thank you. That vote is now open. And I'll now close the vote. And that carries. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Devan. We are now at the Planning and Economic Development portion of tonight's agenda. We have two registered delegations for the Planning and Economic Development agenda. Please note that the delegations have 5 minutes to speak. Our first delegation this evening is from Victoria Colantonio and Terrence Glover, Urban in Mind, regarding item 7.2.1, zoning bylaw amendment by 20 Valley Communities for 3731 19th Street, PD 1923.
Hi, everybody. I'm Victoria. I'm here on behalf of Urban in Mind. So I'm sure everybody's familiar with this presentation. We made almost the exact same presentation about a month ago. So we're talking about 3731 19th Street in Jordan. Here's an aerial view of the property. Here's a street view of the property. So currently there's an existing apartment building, and it just contains rental units, and we have a parking lot in front of the building. In the official plan, the subject property is designated mixed use. Under the zoning bylaw, it's zoned RM2. Here is the original proposed site plan that was brought in front of committee at the last meeting. So the original intent was to construct a 2-story semi-detached dwelling, 2 units, Unit A and Unit B, on the northern portion of the subject property. And as you can see here, the existing 3-story apartment building would be maintained with the addition at the front, which was approved through minor variance. So since then, there have been some changes to the site plan. This is the new proposed site plan. The parking lot has been reoriented in attempt to address neighborhood concerns about the parking count. And along with the reorientation of the parking, we've also reduced the parking requirement by removing the originally proposed additional residential units within the semis. So Unit A and Unit B would each before would have consisted of one additional residential unit in the basement. So by removing those units, we've reduced the parking count. We are still deficient in parking. However, this deficiency has been significantly reduced from the original site plan. So we are now at 14 spaces, whereas 16 would be required. Another thing that I would like to point out is the semi-detached unit, the original site plan proposed 2-story units for Unit A and Unit B. There was some back and forth about the height of the semis and especially Unit A, which kind of the side yard of Unit A, the northern portion of the property, was casting a significant shadow on the unit 30 of the townhouse development there on the corner. So the compromise was we have reduced the height of Unit A. It is now a bungalow. And as a result of that, the shadowing has been significantly mitigated and meets the region standards for the required hours of unobstructed sunlight in the backyard. So we believe that these changes address neighborhood and town staff concerns. Again, those changes being the height to Unit A, in attempt to give the neighbor whose backyard was before obstructed some more sunlight during the day. And the parking lot has been reconfigured and the spots have been reduced. The required amount has been reduced and the amount provided has been increased. Again, here's just a list of all the variances or the site-specific provisions that would be required. So we have a reduction to the minimum lot area, a reduction to the minimum interior side yard setback of Unit A, a reduction to the minimum front yard setback for Units A and B, the semis, a reduction to the minimum landscape open space, the reduction to parking rates for the apartment building, reduction to visitor parking, and the overall parking count for the site, a reduction to the parking aisle width, and to permit the semi-detached dwelling as a use on the property, as they are currently not permitted in the RM2 zone. This was the original concept design for the semis. As you can see, there's 2-story units. Here is the new proposed design. So as you can see, Unit A to the left there is now a single-story bungalow, and Unit 2 to the right maintains the 2-story building height. A shadow study has been completed voluntarily by the applicant in order to address the concerns. It's been included in the agenda as well as the summary of findings. And this is just a side-by-side of the full build out for the site. So to the left are the semi units and to the right is the approved apartment with the addition on the front. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you very much, Victoria.
Thank you.
Councillor Renchima.
Thank you, Chair Patrick. Thank you for presentation, and I'm happy that I have my notes from in February when you first brought this application forward, and some of the concerns from the people that spoke were again the shadow study. So I'm glad that's done, and I'm glad that the 2-story has now been reduced to 1-story. That's good. I'm sure people are happy about that. And another note that I have that someone brought up is that the minor variance that was approved had a condition attached that landscape plan be present. Do we know anything about the progress of that?
We do have the landscape plan here. I gave them to Monica, so she should have them for circulation. It's just a preliminary landscape plan right now, subject to change with the semis in the future. But we do have that. I'm not sure if they were circulated or not. but we have.
Okay. We might hear from someone in the audience about that, if they chose to speak, but thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Councillor Timmers.
Thank you, Chair Pat Riva, through you to Victoria. I was going to say Veronica for a second there, Victoria. Thank you for your presentation. So, you know, I went over this a few times and I think it always comes back to parking. So there's going to be 9 apartments with 10 spaces. So that would mean that everyone in the apartment must have 1 car or no car and can't have anyone come to visit them. So I find that a little concerning. The other question, so that's just a statement. So the semis, I see that they're going to have 2 spaces each. Now, does that mean 1 space in the driveway and 1 car in the garage?
So for the semis, we were actually not permitted, and this was from pre-consultation, we're not permitted by the region to put driveways in front of the semi units. So we put the designated driveway spaces to the rear. So they will have 1 driveway space and 1 garage space dedicated to the semis. So each unit A and unit B will have 2 dedicated spaces.
So they have to put 1 car in the garage if they have 2 cars.
Yes, ideally, yes.
And again, what if someone wants to come and visit them? What will they do?
So in that case, I would like to point out that currently the apartment building, as it stands, the parking lot is underutilized, as not all of the tenants have 2 vehicles. Some of them don't even have 1 vehicle. So based on that trend, it's not anticipated that all of the spaces will be used at all hours of the day. And I'd also like to point out that across the street, on the other side of 19th Street, there is a municipal lot that can be used for overflow parking and currently is used for overflow parking for businesses and other residents in the area.
Okay, I kind of thought that might occur. However, you know, people can't have 2 vehicles and have the second vehicle sitting in the municipal lot 24/7.
We came up with the best configuration for the parking lot for the site as it is. It is an oddly shaped site. It was hard to kind of fit parking in a way that made sense and in a way that satisfied everybody. So we felt like this was the best way to recognize the full potential of the lot based on the development.
Okay, and Chair, if I could just ask one more thing.
Mhm.
So in the proposed semi-detached dwelling rendering here, I was a little confused because it looks like there's 3, but there's 2. Like, am I looking at this incorrectly? Like, I see the 1 story, then I see the 2 story. And what's the building to the right? Is that part of the 2 story? Or is that a building?
That is that's the back of the addition of the bungalow, the 1-story unit A. So that's the back end of it, because the building footprint beforehand
Okay.
was not enough for a reasonably sized bungalow. So we extended it into the back to make up for that space.
Okay, all right, sorry, I was just maybe not looking at
That's
the
okay.
rendering correctly. Because it's, you know, it's a tight space, right? So, okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Murray.
Thank you very much, Chair. Through you to our presenter, thank you very much for being here today. I echo Councillor Timmers' comments on the parking. I'm very concerned with that level of parking. And although it is the solution that you've come up with that's best for the property, I feel like it's not best for the neighborhood. So I'm really concerned about that still. Can you still clarify, or can you clarify for me? So the 2 units that are the semi-detached were going to be 4 units and now it's going to be 2 units.
Correct.
And is there anything like, is it being built that in the future it could become a 2 unit, not the bungalow, but this 2-story?
Based on the parking requirements, it's not anticipated, but I can't say for certain. I'm not sure.
All right, thank you very much. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next delegation is from Colin Parcher. Regarding item 7.2.1 zoning bylaw amendment by 20 Valley Communities for 3731 19th Street, PD 19-23. Colin, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. this application is flawed in a number of ways. The first, Mr. Neeson went to the Committee of Adjustments and got some variances approved there. He's now back before this committee asking for 9 more variances or exemptions from the bylaw. The bylaw says that the density space is to be 166 square meters per unit. What Mr. Neeson's asking for is 120 square meters. If you look at the lot size of 1,569 square meters, that with 11 units, that would be 142 square meters per unit. But if you take and add 2 more units to it, which were the original plan of 13, you'd be down to 120, which is exactly what's being asked for. This is something that the town planners have actually discouraged. And I think it's just something that's inevitable, particularly if you look at slide 15 of the presentation that you just saw, you'll see that it appears to be a position on the side of that slide that could be a stairway to the basement. As well, you're supposed to have 10 square feet of amenity space per unit. This shows up on the plans for units A and B, but these are being built in that where the parking is actually very questionable. If you look at the other unit, the building itself, you don't have 10 square meters. An amenity space cannot include decks and such things like that. It's got to be green space. And it's, for clarity, it's actually a space that is an outdoor area exclusively used by the occupants. So even the green space behind units A and B cannot be considered amenity space for the building that was supposed to have 8 units, 6 units plus a lower level and a phantom group home. The requirement, the site plan on page 22 holds a number of conditions, and the third condition that the amended plan includes amenity spaces. The parking is another issue, which I'm really appreciate some of the councillors raising. The bylaw requires 13 units for this apartment development under its current stage. They're proposing 11 to 12. But if you look at the 120 square meter density, you're going to have 15 parking spaces required. The statement was made that there's parking across 19th Street is inaccurate. Across 19th Street from the building is the Jordan Pizza property, and people have to pay to use that lot. The closest free parking at this point in time, which I think is going to change, is adjacent to the fire hall further down 19th Street. The flaws in this, I don't mean to offend Mr. Bruder or any of his staff, but I don't think staff has actually accurately looked at this proposal and crunched the numbers to see whether they actually match. This is a bigger issue that we're facing right now, and that's developers, and Mr. Neeson is guilty of this as anybody else, is they look at a piece of property and they buy it, and then they try to make it work, make the numbers work. I talked to another developer in Jordan who actually said he looked at the property, but the numbers didn't work. We can't keep coming back to council, whether it be this council or any other one, and saying, I need this amended, and this amended, because I want to make the numbers work. The bylaws are there for a specific reason, and some minor variances I understand have to take place. But when you've got previously, I believe 5 or 6 variances at the Committee of Adjustments, and now we've got 9 more here, it's just not acceptable. That this either has to go back to the town and have them really crunch the numbers and look at what Mr. Neeson is asking for, or this should be rejected. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Parcher. Committee, any questions to Mr. Parcher? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. There being no further delegations for this item, I have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers. The council receive and file as information the following delegations regarding the zoning bylaw amendment by 20 Valley Communities for 3731 19th Street, PD 19-23, Victoria Colantonio, sorry, Victoria, Urban in Mind, Terrence Glover, Urban in Mind, and Colin Parcher. I will now ask our deputy clerk to open the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote's now open. I will now close the vote. And that motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we're now considering report PD 19-23 regarding zoning bylaw amendment by 20 Valley Communities, Inc. for 3731 19th Street. So do members of committee have any questions to staff regarding this report? Councilor Reimer.
Thank you, Chair Patriva. Through to staff, excuse me, just regarding the updated site plan with regards to drainage. Under the public engagement matters, one of the concerns was drainage. One of my concerns as well, because of the substantial grade changes on this lot. I just want to confirm that this project will have its own storm sewer service and not share, not have a common, quite generally, or generally in grading infill lots, they'll work to a common swale or to, you know, an existing catch basin. I guess I just want to confirm that that all this water that's generated downspouts, everything is going to stay on this property, be directed to the proper outlets. There will be some creative thinking in grading this lot. So I just want to make sure that's that's what's going to happen. So through you, Chair, to staff, Diane, or to David.
Through you, Chair, thank you for that question. Yes, so these semi-detached dwellings will require site plan approval. And part of that process is the submission of a grading and drainage plan. So staff will have to approve a grading and drainage plan. They have looked at it already. There was a proposal for a retaining wall. Everything will have to be contained on site. Obviously, no adverse effects to neighboring properties. And all drainage will be directed to the road away from adjacent properties. But yeah, definitely a grading and drainage plan will be submitted and approved by town staff.
Okay. And a follow-up,
Go ahead.
Patrick, just, and they will have their own services. I'm of course, water and sanitary, but storm sewer will be their own service.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Timmers.
Thank you, Chair Patriva, through you to Director Director Copiera, sorry. The part around the secondary units, it says noted that the town would strongly discourage any future accessory residential units on the property without demonstrating that parking can be accommodated. I'm just wondering, how would we enforce that long term?
Thank you for that question through you, Chair. So as it stands right now, no additional units will be permitted because there's no additional parking proposed. So they wouldn't be permitted to add any additional units on site because of the parking, unless they can demonstrate that they can add additional parking on site. Staff wouldn't support any additional units beyond what's being proposed today.
Right, I understand that. I guess I'm just wondering how you would follow that 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, somebody who can just renovate on their own and change the basement into a unit. I just not sure how you're going to enforce that, but.
Yeah, through you, Chair, any additional units would require a building permit, so planning staff would flag it at that point.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Ms. Copiera. Just one other point, Chair. In the report, it says that the neighbors will be permitted to view the landscape plan when submitted. I just want to clarify that will happen.
Yep, through you, Chair. So as part of the minor variance process for the addition to the apartments, it was a condition that the future landscape plan be permitted to be viewed by the neighbors wishing to view it. So I did just receive the landscape plan this evening from the applicant. So I'm not sure yet if this is the final landscape plan. I plan on talking to the applicant about that, but as part of the whole site plan application for the semis, a landscape plan will be required and can be viewed by, I will notify the neighbors that they can come and view it.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor. And Ms. Coquera, we've had a couple issues with the parking, and in the report, it stated that the two new semis that one will occupy the garage and the other the additional spot. Are we going to put that on title like we do we have in other developments to ensure that the garage isn't used as a storage unit, thereby further hampering the parking allocation?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, all our site plan agreements include a clause that any garages must be used for parking and not for storage.
Okay, and with Mr. Barkway there, but beside you, how is that? How do we enforce that?
Thank you for the question. It would be on a complaint basis, as we would need to have some authority to attend on a property to cause an inspection. So there'd have to be information that would be provided first in order to cause an officer to attend on the property and inspect the property to make a determination whether that is being done or not.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Barkway. And then just one other point of clarification to I guess, Mr. Graham, because in the report, it's stated that visitors are going to be encouraged to park at the new 19th Street parking lot behind the fire station. So, visitors come over, there's a party, they stay over. Will that have any negative impacts on, if it does snow when it's in the winter, on snow clearing of that lot? Knowing that, the parking lots, arenas and that are done first thing in the morning, you like it devoid of cars so it can be done in a quick and timely manner. So just want to get your thoughts on that.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. It's a good comment. Yeah, we normally try and do our snow clearing on our public parking lots very early in the morning. And the public parking lot would have parking restrictions on it. We typically, don't allow overnight parking per se either. So I think it's an option in the report. It's an option for potential overflow parking, similar to, on-street parking could be utilized as well in the area that's available.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. I see no further questions. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Reimer. The committee recommend to council the approval of zoning bylaw amendment PLZBA 2022-0169 by 20 Valley Communities, Inc. for 3731 19th Street. The council enact and pass zoning bylaw amendment as attached as Appendix D of Report PD 19-23 to amend the zoning regulations for the lands to permit site-specific provisions for the residential multiple 2 RM2 zone, and that committee declare that they have considered all of the written and oral submissions and agrees with the planning report analysis and recommendations, and finds that subject to the conditions of approval, this application meets the Planning Act criteria, is consistent with the provincial policy statement, and complies with the growth plan, the Niagara Region official plan, and the town official plan. So I will now ask our deputy clerk to open the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote's now open.
Chair, sorry. Can I make a comment? Not a delegate.
No.
Previous delegate.
Yeah, but unfortunately, sir, no, because we can't allow that. I'm sorry.
I just want the town to be aware that the citizens, the residents that are in your neighborhood are going to.
But you're making a statement after I said you couldn't. So you know what? And you did last time, and you spoke very well, and everyone's got their notes. So you know what?
I just hope that everybody refers to them. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and close that vote. And that carries. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we're now considering report PD 2023 proposed non-parking administrative monetary penalty system bylaw. I will now ask our manager of municipal law enforcement to speak to this report. Mr. Barkway.
Thank you, Chair. This report is in regards to a draft AMPS bylaw for non-parking. Currently, the municipality has in place a AMPS or administrative monetary penalty system bylaw in place in relation to parking enforcement, so parking tickets. And that's been in place since 2018. What this will do is open up so that enforcement wise, we are able to utilize the non-parking AMPS, which is a very similar system that was enabled through the Municipal Act for other bylaws outside of the parking enforcement realm, such as clean yards, some building code, use of parks, open air fire, etc. It allows the officers the opportunity to use no other means other than going into provincial offenses court. The benefits to this would be that it's a quicker system. It's one where any fines that would be administered would come directly back to the town of Lincoln, and it actually frees up the provincial offenses court system for the more serious offenses that take place outside of the realm of the non-parking AMPS. As we move forward, and there's anticipation of other bylaws that would be beneficial to be imposed into as a part of the schedule for this through the coming months and years, it would also be beneficial that way, being by allowing that to take place for those as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Do members of committee have any questions? Councillor Timmers.
Thank you, Chair Pachariva. Through you to Mr. Barkway. I was reading the report and I was trying to understand. So if we have it in-house, is this a shared service amongst other municipalities? I wasn't quite clear. Like it says participating municipalities bi-monthly. So could you just elaborate a little more on that? How that works?
Through you, Chair. Yes, thanks for the question. For clarification, what that refers to is in the realm of hearings. So that it's not directly related to the non-parking AMPS fines that may be imposed, but if somebody wishes to appeal a screening decision, screenings are done in-house. But as with the AMPS portion, which for parking offenses, if a person wishes to appeal the decision or determination in the screening, it then goes to a hearing officer, which is, we have a shared hearing agreement throughout the municipalities for the hearings, not for the actual enforcement, but just for the hearings after a screening is conducted.
Okay, thank you. And just a question.
Go ahead.
So I just wanted to be clear, so I understand, like, you know, I support this. I just need to understand how it's going to work. So the one bullet, it says, you know, 15 days to pay or ask for an appointment to meet with the appointed screening officer / committee. Would we be forming an in-house committee that they would go before? Am I reading that incorrectly?
Through you, thank you for the question. For clarification, it would just be for the screening officer itself. It wouldn't be for a committee.
Okay, all right. I wasn't sure establishing a committee. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Murray.
Thank you very much, Chair. Through you to Mr. Barkway. In the financial section, it says that some additional costs will be incurred, but that it's supposed to be offset by the fees coming in. But now I'm assuming the additional costs are in addition to the fees that would be received in terms of fines. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair. Thank you for the question. For clarification, the additional cost would be the cost to have non-parking AMPS related offense notices created in order to utilize those. We can't use the ones we use for parking offenses at this point. That would truly be the major cost, with just having new offense notices printed up that are carbon in order to be issued to an offending property or person.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much. So so offset of that then, so then my understanding is this program will allow us to have the fines would come to us as opposed to the province. Do I understand that correctly? Comes to the town?
Through you, Chair. Yes, that's correct. As we do with the parking offenses that we have now, same thing would happen with what I'm suggesting or what my staff is suggesting is that the non-parking AMPS identified bylaws, fines for those would come back through the AMPS process directly to the municipality.
And based on past fines, do we have any idea of what kind of a dollar value that would be per year?
I don't know that through you, Chair, my apologies. I don't know if you can equate what takes place in the parking enforcement realm to what would be with these different bylaws. But it averages over the last 2 years, unfortunately, with COVID, I can speak to $9,000 to $12,000 in income revenue that comes back from parking enforcement that takes place. I would anticipate that would be more with some of these, especially with what I anticipate if the town of Lincoln goes through with the short-term accommodation bylaw, the set fines for that I would anticipate would be incurred would bring in more revenue for the town than what I would say we could anticipate from the majority of parking offenses, which are between $30 and $75.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Renchema.
Thank you, Chair Patriva. Thank you for the report. And through you, Mr. Chair, my question is about collections. So I'm not familiar with all the current fines that would be associated with the non-AMPS bylaws, and how anything that's handled by the province, how collections would happen, but how would it happen when it's in our hands?
Through you, Chair. Thank you for the question. With the parking enforcement, those go to, we have an AMPS process, so there'd be notice of a late penalty that's then mailed out, registered mail to the person who was issued the parking infraction, notifying them that it's outside of the time frame, and now there's additional costs are added to that. And if that continues, then the possibility is then take it to the Ministry of Transportation, and it would go against the driver license at that point. I would not like to guess on whether we can utilize that same system for this. I don't think that we could, but it is something I would have to look into and get back to you with a better answer in regards to a collection process.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So there being no further discussion, I have a motion moved by Councillor Murray. Receive and file for information report PD 20-23 regarding proposed non-parking administrative monetary penalty system bylaw, and that the draft administrative monetary penalty system bylaw attached as Appendix A be approved. I will now ask our deputy clerk to open the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote's now open. And I'm closing that vote. And that carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. There being no additional reports to consider for Planning and Economic Development Committee agenda tonight, we've now concluded that portion of the agenda. We will now rotate and allow Councillor and Chair Lynn Timmers to assume the chair role at this time for the General Business and Finance Committee agenda.
Okay, thank you. We are now at General Business and Finance Committee agenda. We have no delegations. Under reports, we will now consider Information Technology Project Status Update Report FN 0523. The Manager of Enterprise Services will now provide a presentation. Mike, welcome. Please go ahead.
Your mind back. Oh, sorry. If you cast your mind back to 2022, these are the major projects we completed at the end of the year since you saw me last in the fall. Our graphical information system, I think, came to council and we've had a conversation about it. This is a very exciting project. We've modernized our platform and more importantly, we've aligned our current offering with our sister municipalities. The product we were using before, we were one of the few continuing to use the vintage solution that we were. There was great interest in modernizing and aligning with the other solutions that the other municipalities have. And I'm happy to report that it's online. GIS, graphical information, does inform a lot of our decision-making. I know many of you are familiar with it. And it was a big push for staff. People are very excited to hear it and see it. And I will say that some of the staff who have joined the town of Lincoln from other municipalities are now able to better leverage their expertise because this is a solution they were familiar with using. The website redevelopment, I know you've all heard of. I know you're all loving it. There's no critical feedback in any way, I'm sure. It's been very successful. It's been well received as far as we know. I know our economic development team has worked very closely with the Speak Up Lincoln platform as well to make sure that we do, if there are any, critical comments from citizens. Importantly for me, this solution is fully managed by our third-party vendor. The solution that we had before was like a three-way partnership between enterprise services, two technology vendors, and economic development. This new solution is one vendor, and it's primarily being run out of economic development. So it's a tighter relationship and less people in the middle. So hopefully going forward, we can more quickly address challenges if they arise. And then the last thing over here is excited for me. I'm sure some of you do get emails from this system and my staff. I apologize, but we've implemented 2 AI-based solutions. So traditional email and filtering solution, it's a rule. We call it a hammer. You're from this place or this email, you don't get to come in. This system learns. So initially it is fairly restrictive, but as it spends more time with us and spends more time with our habit, it starts to understand how we work. This means for emergent threats, it can better identify challenges. And for those of you that get large attachments or deal with ongoing people, it won't bother you every time. So we're happy with it. It's continuing to learn. I hope you're getting fewer and fewer emails about challenging attachments, and we're continuing to grow with it together. So these are some of the IT capital projects. So that's specifically out of the enterprise services budget we completed. For those of you that have been to the Lincoln Museum and Cultural Center, we finally have all of the cameras up there. I know there were some challenges late last year with vandalism. Hopefully this works to mitigate that. It's capturing the front of the space, the inside of the space, and the rear of the space. So hopefully we've got good coverage if there are challenges. The council chambers, of course, the technology in this space, while I won't purport to pretend is perfect, I think we've made good strides and I'm ready to receive questions about it. And then the last 2 things are more interesting for me and my staff, but IT infrastructure redundancy really is just a fancy way of saying we changed a lot of batteries last year. Sometimes the power infrastructure in the town, we have challenges with depending where we are. So we need a lot of very robust backup and happy to report that a lot of the sites are getting more and more robust as we go on. And then the one at the bottom right here, this is an older facility. it was due for some upgrades in our core switching. This is how your computers are currently connected to the internet. This is how I'm talking to the world. So these are just quality of life changes. I promise there's no Cadillacs hidden anywhere upstairs, no servers. But this is just replacing things that needed to be damaged and a better opportunity for us to control kind of the flow going forward. So that's the past. This is what we're working on this year. So municipal permitting, I know there was a presentation or at least a report that came to council about this. This is our transition from City View to cloud permit. Cloud permits fully online in our building department as of April 1st. And the really exciting thing about this is that now residents have a more streamlined experience for applying for permits. And as we bring our planning solution online, it will be the same solution. So if you're building, if you're planning, theoretically in the future, if you're paying for some other permitting, it will all be in one system. We are working on getting our historic data into the system so that our folks in the field will also be able to access from one system. We're not quite there yet, but we're hoping this is if you're on your cell phone, you're on your laptop, you're on your tablet, you can access everything from one place here and in the field. The fire and emergency management solution, this is First Do. You've probably heard about this. So First Do is an American company. We are their flagship in Canada, and they have been specifically tailoring the solution for us. Now that's exciting. It's been a little slower than we expected, but there's no bill yet. So right now, because we're working together with them to get their Canadian offering, we're not paying for the solution out of operating anyway. We're paying with our time, but we're working to make sure it's perfect. The old solution has been deprecated, is no longer supported. So it's an ongoing risk that we're hoping to mitigate with this solution, hoping will be done kind of in the fall. And then on here on the right, our collaborative portal or our intranet. This is an ongoing project. So again, we're not done, but this is leveraging our SharePoint solution, which you're probably all on right now, for an opportunity for internal departments to communicate. So if individuals are away, if they're here or they're remote, it's one place for all of their documents. This is an internal facing, not external facing. ECDev has an excellent job with the website, but this is for our staff. So this is reports, this is information. It's all in a single place to access their data. It's driven by technology we already have, so there's no significant software cost. We have 4 now departments that are currently leveraging it. So for example, enterprise services, we have all of our documents on there. Our friends in procurement are using it because obviously they have a lot of complicated files. And again, it can be accessed here or wherever you are. And then again, some of the capital projects, things that are coming out of the enterprise services. I look around and I see some renewed devices, which I'm happy to hear. We're moving ahead with our one device, one individual hardware renewal. So this means where possible, eliminating multiple devices. During COVID, I know people had the opportunity to go to their laptops, which I think has been very successful, and that's the feedback we've got. Hopefully you have similar feedback. And that means workstations which linger under desks, getting dirty, getting kicked, we're looking to move away from whenever possible. There are certainly circumstances, especially in shared cases, like in a shop, where a workstation makes sense. But for mobile work, we're really trying to move to one device. It means less to repair and less to license, which is also critically important. The other thing that will be coming up later this year is our mobile device refresh. So this will be a full refresh of the corporate fleet. So that will be moving from the current iPhone 11s that we have to either 13s or 14s. We're getting quote in on both of them. We're expecting to do that in late September. The bottom left here, information displays. If you've been to Fleming, the Fleming Arena, of course, you know there's those, and Jordan Arena, there's those big, beautiful displays that talk about all of our programming that's going on, all the exciting things that are coming up. We are working with community service to put these in more places. So in a few weeks' time, there'll be one right at the front of Town Hall, which I'm sure you'll all love every time you come in. We're working to get one at the Lincoln Center. And we're working with community services to put them in some of their other facilities that don't currently have them going forward, so they can kind of have unified communication across facilities. The last one there, that is a real picture. It has since been cleaned up, thankfully, but our backup data center, This is our emergency operations center. So if there was an emergency that the town can fall back on infrastructure, if something happened here at Town Hall, we could continue to resume operations. So we're working on additional security, additional resiliency to make sure, again, that site has power and that site has multiple data connectivity if there was some sort of potential issue. Those are my highlights. As I said, there are additional projects in the report I did not cover. I'm happy to go into them as well. I will take a drink of water. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Brousseau. So questions from council? Very exciting projects going on.
Thank you.
Councillor Reimer.
Thank you, Chair Timmers. Thank you, Mike, for that report. For those of us who aren't as who are the opposite of geeks, it's kind of cool to see all this. Not that I'm calling you a geek, but you know all this stuff and I don't. So it's very cool to
I embrace it.
very cool to hear all this. Just one question regarding the funding for the Niagara West Fire Emergency Services, the first due.
Yes.
The budget for 2022 was 63,000, and it says we're not going to begin. Are we going to begin paying in 2025? Is that the idea, or whenever this software gets ironed out? Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah, so through you, Chair, that's correct. So additionally, we won't use it right away. There's this cost sharing agreement that we're giving expertise and they're giving us software. And yeah, the original agreement was 2025. The specific dollars may change a little bit. I think they might go down a little bit because that cost includes our staff time for implementation. So that's not just the yearly software cost. The ops cost would be, our operating cost would be lower than that per year.
Sure. And then so that number that's there for licensing excluding taxes, is that Town of
Yeah.
Lincoln share, or is that the
Yes.
West Niagara, or is that Niagara West combined?
Oh, sorry, that is Niagara West combined. Yes,
Combined,
that will be
okay.
the
So we'll,
force will
Yeah.
bear that cost. Yes.
okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Timmers.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Reimer. I now have Councillor Patrick.
Thank you, Councillor Reimer, for stealing my question, but that's okay. I have another. So, Greg, where are we? Mike, thank you very much. And question with respect to information display.
Okay.
So I drive all over the province looking at stuff while I drive. And we've got some antiquated information display systems, you know, the old letters go up. And throughout a lot of the municipalities I drive, there's the digital signage available, right? So fire stations, rec centers, libraries, where not only can you put out town messaging of events or things like that, you also get a revenue stream from service clubs or that. So they'll pay you a small fee. Councillor Murray tweaked me with the revenue stream. And again, Mr. Kirkopoulos says we don't have a spending problem, we have a revenue issue. So constantly looking for revenue. So any ideas about that going forward, about implementing something like that, where it would be a one-stop message that you could put on you would type it out and it would go everywhere?
Through you, Chair. I know the Director of Economic Development is interested in that. I know there was some capital project. I'm not sure of its status at this moment that would be used in an arrangement like that.
Okay.
Like large color displays that you could put that kind of joint signage on. I do know, and I don't want to speak for my colleagues in community services, but I know there is interest in expanding the use of the displays that we have at our facilities. So not just adding more, but doing more with them. But to my knowledge, at this moment, there aren't plans to do kind of either of those things, but it's certainly not outside the realm of possibility of the technology. We would just need a structure to do so.
Okay, terrific. Thank you, because there used to be a board at the corner of King Street and Ontario Street. That because you're stopped there at traffic, people are constantly reading that message. And we got to remember, not everyone is on social media. Not everyone, when we're out campaigning, we see the local papers at the end of the driveway, unfortunately, right? So, got to constantly be thinking about how do we get that message out? Like, we know about all the good stuff, but we got to tell them. And years ago, the street banners that would go up, about events and festivals. Now, we were told from the region that they weren't at the proper height, but you know what, I beg to differ. I'm from Missouri and, you know, you see them St. Catharines is able to use them, so why not us? Grimsby uses them, so why not us? And those poles were put in by the region. If they're not the right height, they should be the ones that put the right ones in so we can use them. So just like it's an overarching thing with communications to get that message. So, yeah. Excellent. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Councillor Pachariva. Next we have Councillor Rajima. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my question is about the cybersecurity initiative. We have AI-based email filtering and scanning, AI-based activity intelligent reporting, and threat modeling. So this isn't, I'm aware that there's a lot of municipalities, and you know better than I do, that have been subject to ransomware attacks and have had a lot of problems resulting from that, and financial problems and operational problems for extended periods of time. So these things are all going in place, and that's great. And that's exactly what we need. But what do we need to know as users of the system that we don't already know? I feel like we don't talk about that a lot. As people receiving emails, we see them blocked. But what about staff and council? Is there anything more we should know? Keep us safe.
There's always more to know about cybersecurity, Counselor. And if you ever want me to come and talk for a very long time, I certainly can. But to be serious, it is an ongoing threat. I don't want to doom and gloom about it, but it is certainly something that me and my staff spend a lot of time talking about. I was actually just in a meeting this week with the other IT managers from around Niagara, talking about what we can do as a group to better prepare for this, whether this is modeling between teams, so different security teams from different municipalities working together or against each other in exercises, leveraging procurement, but it can also be small habit-based things. So user awareness around what an actual threat looks like. My staff, who's in the room, just showed me an email today that was spear phishing him from a former employer trying to start a conversation about buying gift cards. I think that's what Flight did. But I have to say, I see a lot of cybersecurity threat reports. And this is one of the realest I've seen. This came to one of my staff today. So this is a real threat for sure. As members of council, you have a lot of access, a lot of privileged access. So certainly this is an ongoing conversation that I'd be very happy to have with you.
I think that would be a good idea for us all to hear it. I know at work we've received some pretty fancy ones lately,
I'm sure.
really fancy ones, and lined up with some activity that's going on within the organization. So somebody's watching something and somebody knows something.
Yes.
And I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes you think it's huge, sophisticated organizations. Maybe it's somebody sitting in their basement. I don't even know, but somebody somewhere is making it their full-time job to do so. So I have one more question, Madam Chair. So you talked about council chambers. Over the years, things have gotten better, the system, the audio, but I still see people sometimes out there that can't hear. And so that's why I brought my microphone closer, because I'm going to try and be aware of that. But maybe it's the clerk's department that hears about this, but I'm wondering if there's anything we can do to assist further, or if there is a problem, or if it's just a matter of the mic's got to come up closer to us.
Sure. Through you, Chair. Thank you for the question. It's totally fair. I think there's both a technology solution and there's a personnel solution. I know it's simple, but you really have to talk into that mic. It's only going to catch what you're hearing. There are also ongoing technology challenges in the space that we're actively working on with multiple vendors at this point to make sure that we have a plan and a backup plan. And we're constantly evaluating if this is the right technology and if this is the right configuration. So I acknowledge there are challenges. We talk with the clerks on an ongoing basis, I assure you about them. And we also engage with all of the individuals who come into our space, both digitally and virtually, to make sure it's accommodating for them. But the comment is well taken. Thank you for it.
Okay, so do we hear, question of clarification, do we hear about people not being able to hear when they're in here? Do you hear that?
So we have had situations with older residents who've had challenges hearing in the space, and we do have assistive devices that we've procured to assist them with that, which has been successful. As far as people who are listening remotely. It depends on the individual. Some members of council are very forceful with the way that they speak, and the microphones respond well to that.
Yeah.
Some members of council are more soft-spoken, so need to be a little bit closer to the microphone. So ultimately, what we've done on an ongoing basis is adjust the microphones to suit the individuals. But that takes time and it takes practice. And ultimately, really, the only solution is going to be directly talking into technology.
Proximity to the microphone.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rajima. Next, we have Councillor Russell, and I don't think we're gonna need your mic too close.
Thank you, Chair Timmons. I actually moved it up just in case. Through you, just a quick question about cybersecurity, similar to Councillor Rajima. Do we require our external vendors to provide their security information that they are adhering to either our IT protocols?
Through you, Chair, absolutely. So as part of our procurement process, we're evaluating the current and future security plans of our vendors, in addition to all of the other things we are typically procuring. So absolutely, if it's required of us, it's required of our vendors.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Good to hear.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Okay, I don't see anyone else in the queue. I'm just checking the screen to me. I always forget who's up there. There being no further discussion, I have a motion moved by Councillor Russell. Receive and file for information, report FN-05-23 regarding 2023 Information Technology Project Status Update. And Devan, if you could please open the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now open. And I will close that vote, and that motion carries. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mike. Okay, so there being no further or additional reports to consider, we've now concluded the General Business and Finance Committee agenda. As there are no items on the Community Services and Infrastructure Committee agenda, I will continue as chair for the remainder of the meeting. We will now consider agenda item 10.1, motion to consider confidential items. Before I read the motion, when we move into closed, I'd like to explain what will happen for those watching this meeting online. First, there will be a closed session statement that the deputy clerk will go through for staff that will be attending the closed session remotely. Once that is completed, we will move on with the motion to move into closed. The deputy clerk will be turning off the live webcast during the closed portion of the meeting. Once we have completed the closed portion of the meeting, we will resume with the live webcast and carry on with the public portion of the meeting, and we'll read the motions in public session. I will now ask the deputy clerk to conduct the closed session statement for those attending the closed session remotely.
Thank you, Chair Timmers. All members are reminded that discussions in closed session are to remain confidential as per procedural bylaw and our code of conduct for the Council of the Town of Lincoln. Before we begin, I need each member that is attending electronically to confirm the following: that you understand that matters are to remain confidential, and confirm no one else is present with you, and confirm no one else can hear this closed session, and confirm that you are not using any electronic devices other than your tablet, computer, telephone for video conferencing, and confirm that you are not recording this portion of the meeting. If you acknowledge all of the above, please reply with "I understand" and confirm to all of these statements as I read your name aloud. Director of Legislative Services, Town Clerk Julie Kirklos.
I understand and confirm to all of the statements.
Thank you. Chair, back to you.
Thank you very much, Devan. I have a motion moved by Councillor Pachariva. Under Section 239 of the Municipal Act, notice is hereby given that council adjourn to closed session in order to address item 8.1 as follows. Pursuant to Section 239 2B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Deputy Clerk, if you could please open the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote's now open. Thank you, and I'll close that. And that motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our deputy clerk will now proceed with the technical requirements to move into closed session. Devan, please confirm when we're ready to proceed. Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Reimer. The council resume in open session. Deputy Clerk, if you could please open the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now open. And that motion is now closed and that carries.
Thank you very much. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rajima. That council receive and file the confidential update and that the staff move forward as directed in closed session as it relates to item 10.1 pursuant to section 239 2B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. I will now ask our deputy clerk to open the vote.
Thank you, Chair, and that vote is now open. And I will go ahead and close that vote. And that carries. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Do committee members have any remarks? Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just really quickly, to staff, had and to council as well. Had a meeting with the BIA this week, and one of the comments that came up was regarding our CIP for the downtown facade improvement. And they had asked to see if there's any ability to look into bringing that back. So this is a notice of motion that at some point down the road, we want to see if we can bring back a feasibility study to determine whether or not that CIP can be brought back on its own and whether or not it's got the financial viability to do so. So
Okay,
just throw that out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. I know there's some other portions as well and different CIPs, so maybe over to our CAO for comment on where we're at in that process.
Move this a little closer through you, Madam Chair, to the councillor. Yeah, absolutely. I think that, the councilor's looking for a notice of motion and we can probably parse that out and deal with it at a future council meeting. In terms of the broader CIP report, I know staff are working on that. And I'll be providing council an update on that with Mr. Bruder and Mr. Deanny at a later time, probably in the next number of months. But I think a conversation we want to have with our finance team as well, and looking at some of the other, I think, intersecting points we have on a number of financial elements. We'll be coming forward with that. There's also some new legislation specifically around affordable and attainable housing through the province that has already eliminated, I think, some of the need for municipalities to establishing CIP programs for those particular elements. And so I think a little bit of an education and an update for members of council, but we'll be bringing that forward, I would say, sometime in Q2.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. Okay. I'm not seeing any other names in the queue, so there being no further business, I call this meeting adjourned at 7:11 p.m. Thank you, everyone.